A few years back, and even still today, there was a lot of controversy about Disney labeling this weapon as Rey's lightsaber. And when I say controversy, I of course mean something that has no bearing on the overall story at all and is pretty irrelevant. So, I'm here to break down whose lightsaber it truly is, going through the timeline and using US law to break it down, since I have no idea what the laws are like regarding property ownership in a galaxy far, far away. Before we start, be sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss out on future content. Also, today's video is sponsored by sand. It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. Get used to it. So, Anakin Skywalker built the weapon in question early in the Clone Wars, and carried it throughout the war until his fateful duel on Mustafar against Obi-Wan Kenobi. Here, his weapon was taken from him by Obi-Wan. Anakin gave no consent or permission for his weapon to be taken, so under US Code Title 18, Chapter 922, this weapon is now considered stolen property, and Obi-Wan, by giving it to Luke under the false pretense that his father wanted him to have it, is now in violation of subsection 6 that forbids the sale or passing on of said stolen weapon under fictitious story about the lawful possession of the property. Skipping ahead a bit, Luke used this weapon throughout Empire Strikes Back. According to US law, though Luke may not be held legally at fault for using the stolen property, which it still is as the rightful owner, Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, is still alive, he is still in possession, albeit unknowingly, of stolen property. During his duel on Bespin with Vader, the weapon is presumably lost. Now it falls under the category of lost, stolen property. In this case, under US law, you are expected to report your stolen or lost weapon to the proper authorities along with any notable information pertaining to it. If it is found by the authorities, assuming no illegal acts were committed that would require holding said weapon for evidence in a case, the rightful owner is then to fill out the forms and speak to the authorities in order to get their property back. Unfortunately, no one involved in the possession of the weapon reported it missing or contacted authorities, so at this point there is not much the authorities can do. During the gap between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, the weapon passes hands to many people, none of whom are the rightful owner. In Return of the Jedi, Anakin, the rightful owner, passes away. Here's where the law gets murky, as the owner, Anakin being deceased, can no longer claim the stolen property. In cases such as this, if the property is found after the owner's death, the law will typically require, depending on the case or property, that the property be turned into the authorities who can contact the estate or family of the victim and discuss in what way the property, if it can be, will be returned. In cases where the spouse of the victim, Padme in this case, has also passed, the property would then, in most cases, be passed on to the victim's next of kin. In most cases, a will by the victim would make things easier, however, Anakin has no will to speak of. So, for the sake of brevity and bypassing the legal loopholes involved, we will say that the weapon now rightfully must be turned in to the authorities, if found, so it can be given to Anakin's next of kin, Luke. That doesn't happen. In the sequels, Maz Kanata, the current holder of the lost property, gives the weapon unlawfully still to Finn. After he loses it on Starkiller Base, Rey takes it and stops Kylo, who may hold more of a claim to it at this point, being related to the original victim, from taking it. Rey goes to Ahch-To and finds Luke, in the eyes of the law, the rightful owner. She gives it to him, but he discards it rather than accepting it. Now here, we again tread murky waters, as the property is now considered abandoned or discarded property. US law defines abandoned personal property as personal property left by an owner who intentionally relinquishes all rights to its control. Under US law, a finder, Rey, may claim discarded property by law if the owner has knowingly and purposefully discarded it. Now, depending on the circumstances, there may be a 30-day waiting period in which the owner can recall their claim to it, and depending on if the finder wants to give it back, it may go to court for them to decide. However, Rey, now by law the rightful owner, again attempts to return it to Luke, who again rejects it. Luke later dies in the film, meaning that he can no longer claim the weapon. But what about the other next of kin to Anakin? Leia and Kylo. While moving into the Rise of Skywalker, we see Rey using the lightsaber during her training. At this point, we can easily assume that Leia has either given her blessing for Rey to wield the lightsaber, or at the very least, she is allowing her to use it. Leia, in any case, obviously will not file legal action against Rey, and to be honest, there isn't much of a case there anyway. Later in the film, Leia passes, meaning that the final blood relative to Anakin, Kylo, would be the only person who may have a legal claim to the weapon if it cannot be proven in court that Leia gave it to Rey. We, however, do not see that happen. By the end of the film, Luke's ghost has officially given the lightsaber along with Leia's to Rey. Though whether a ghost or specter has the authority to grant ownership in this situation is unclear, and I'm not aware of any cases in the US regarding such phenomena. At the end of the film, Kylo, Anakin's last blood relative, dies. Now, as far as the law is concerned, Rey is the owner of the lightsaber. It is her lightsaber. However, she builds a new one and buries the lightsaber in the sands of Tatooine. Is it now considered abandoned property once again? Not necessarily. In most cases of buried property, such as bodies in cemeteries, or in cases where the owner wishes for the property to no longer be in anyone else's possession, the owner, by law, is still the rightful possessor. And if the item is dug up and taken by another, if the owner testifies that they wished for it not to be removed, the finder may be prosecuted for theft and possibly criminal trespassing. It's clear that Rey desired for the weapon to be laid to rest rather than be wielded again by anyone. So now we come down to it. Whose lightsaber is it? Well, from the Clone Wars until the end of Return of the Jedi, by law, it belongs to the creator, Anakin Skywalker. After his death, in most cases, the rightful owner would be his next of kin, Luke. Luke, however, abandons his claim to the weapon, as does Leia, both allowing Rey to claim it as her own. By law, this is Rey's lightsaber. Anakin built it, Luke used it, Rey owns it. And that is my breakdown of the ownership of this lightsaber. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Concordia Jedi. May the Force be with you. Always.